So, here's the thing. You might think from the story I'm about to tell that I'm like 90 years old, but I yesterday was out doing some outreach. I was doing some outreach for the Claudia de la Cruz Vote Socialist campaign. It is very important that we hit the streets, we go to apartments, we go everywhere and just talk to working class people about socialism. And frankly, the election season is one of the only times you can do that without just being completely written off. Like, right, you have it in. You can talk about the elections. Normal people are thinking about politics. This is why it is important for socialists, even revolutionary socialists, to weigh in these political systems, even that we don't consider, legitimate. But I digress. I'm doing this, and an older lady drops something on the floor. She drops a flyer on the floor. Um, and being the strapping young man that I am, very quickly bend over to help. Tell me why. And I've been kind of saying, yeah, no, I was helping a lady with something, and that's true. But I'm going to be frank with you folks. I was picking up a piece of paper. And I threw my back out. So the time I was going to spend yesterday finishing reading the book we're discussing, I was just lying in my bed in pain, trying to sort of play Stardew Valley, but really not even able to concentrate on that. And so, no, I didn't finish the book, but we had a thing we had discussed potentially doing, a sort of cold reading. And Lenore, do you want to let the people know what we'll be substituting in for Roadside Picnic this week, which will be coming next week, by the way?
Yes, so the article is on Politico. It is by a man named Adam Wren, who looks like Sturmbannführer in the SS. Like, I mean, look him up on
He
Twitter.
looks like he looks like this guy named Brother Mikhail who would come every year to my college campus to like proselytize for like his very unique brand of Christianity that they called Brother Jed Christianity. And if you don't know Brother Jed, look him up. He's a famous evangelical college campus preacher. Tons of fun, but I digress.
Yes, yes, and the article that we are cold reading is called "How Lord of the Rings Shapes J.D. Vance's Politics." The subhead being "A lot of my conservative worldview was influenced by Tolkien." And Jacob, I imagine that twigged something in your head right away.
Yeah, I thought it was good. No, I was like, what the and you just like click on it and you see the art and it's just you'll see it. We'll probably make it the episode cover because it's just too on brand for it not
I
to be.
was I
It
I
very
opined
fresh, very
earlier.
frustrating.
I opined earlier. This is silk screened onto like the side of a van somewhere.
Yeah, no, this is like gangster SpongeBob on the side of a smoke shop. This is Rick and Morty high. This is that type of vibe.
This is
Art.
Jolly Dwarf Vance.
This is Jolly Dwarf Vance. This is juiced down Vance. Yes. Um he is smoking his pipe. You'll see it. But this actually came out in July 19th. So it's been about not quite a month.
Ah, the day
Uh
before my birthday. Happy
uh
birthday to me.
Actually, if we release this on time, which is not necessarily going to be the case, it will be 1 month to the day since the article came out. So, little coincidences that occur. But JD Vance, How Lord of the Rings Shaped His Politics, we're gonna read it and we're gonna get into it. And Politico, before you come for us, have you considered that this is commentary and that we're taking your work extremely seriously? And that I definitely am I definitely am a subscriber and I don't use what is it, 13-foot ladder to read your paywalled articles.
Socialist show. Be good, goods, and organize yourself. Socialist show. Be good, goods, and organize yourself.
listening to Socialist Shelf Radio.
Great publication, Politico. You can know it from the name.
Oh, it's truly up there with the. Did I tell you why I stopped reading 538 back in the day?
No.
So, like, this is on my mind. Like, I was reading an article about Raphael Warnock and like his, how he presented himself on the campaign trail for the Senate, and it was like, oh, he doesn't tend to like play up his race. He tends to like try to minimize that to appeal to people who that might otherwise put off. And in my head, I'm like, okay, first of all, like somebody who doesn't vote for Raphael Warnock because he's black is not going to be won over, by anything he does. A,
Right.
but B, like the article had 5 citations that all led to like this or that publication on previous strategies as a candidate of color downplaying your race. There's precedent for this in politics. The article's thesis was
Okay.
4 of those were actually, no, all of those were paywalled, and only the
Okay.
second one, you could see the abstract of the fucking thing that it was linking to, and the abstract actually, again, we're gonna be a little bit hypocritical because I know we just ragged on JD Vance for only reading the abstract, but I'm literally, only engaging. I'm engaging with the only thing that I could access here,
Mm-hmm.
and what I read actually refuted the article and said, "Oh, there's actually no evidence that downplaying your race if you're a candidate of color helps you electorally." And I'm just looking at this. I'm like, okay, so you actually don't want me to go in search of what the article is citing if I don't have fucking $40 to drop in a book or whatever. So that's. I don't know. That's the side that some of these publications bread is buttered on.
No doubt. It certainly can't be doubted too that they're just sometimes very much reaching for content. And if they wanted
yeah.
to do more fantasy content, Raphael Warlock was right there. They could have done this there could have been a JD Vance Warlock rivalry, wizard duels, the two towers type battle, Gandalf the White, all kinds of cool shit could be showing up.
don't give the author of Hope Rides Alone any ideas.
You never know. You never know. I'm just saying, Raphael Warlock, radical liberal Raphael Warlock, could have been incredibly dangerous. But let's get into this article, which was, by the way, published at 5 a.m. I'm reading, which is kind of it's kind of funny to me.
That's a heinous time of day to be writing about fucking JD Vance.
Just wake up. 5 a.m. Pound how Lord of the Rings shaped JD Vance's politics in the culture club section of Politico. Let me read this first paragraph. When Donald Trump selected JD Vance as his running mate, he elevated the first millennial who will appear on a presidential ticket.
No, he didn't.
Okay.
I just looked this up recently because I
Yeah.
glanced at this.
Actually,
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. Like, and I
Mhm.
don't know if he's the first millennial to appear on a presidential ticket, but in 2008 and in 2016, Eugene Puryear of the Party for Socialism and Liberation was on the vice president on our party's ticket. So, he was born in 1986, just throwing it out there.
there you go. They could have said a major, two-party, something like that. They didn't say it. They said on a presidential ticket.
Ding, sorry.
Yeah, we're gonna cinema sins your ass for this one. We're coming for you. You named yourself Politico. I'm sorry. You've opened yourself up to this, Politico.
Continue.
That makes Vance the first politician who came of age during the Iraq War and the Great Recession. An internet native whose political rise coincided with the development of a new group of conservatives that would become the New Right. And then the New Right is linked, and it goes and talks about the 7 thinkers and groups that have shaped JD Vance's worldview, which, if you're interested in that, we got a whole episode called Just Dance Vance, and I promise you we explain it better than that article does. I haven't even read it, but presumably it talks a little about Curtis Yarvin, the monarchist.
He is in there, yes, and it's from actually the previous day. So, like, presumably there was some round robin in here.
The JD Vance series.
Yeah,
the JD
people,
Vance expanded universe.
Adam Wren saying, "Hey, I wrote this article," and then what? Like Ian Ward's like, "Oh, I actually wrote this just yesterday, so check this out." This, that, the other.
So true. Okay, no complaints with the rest of that because he did come of age during the Iraq War, Great Recession, all that. We'll hand it to him. But perhaps Vance's most millennial trait is just how geeky he is about Lord of the Rings. The trilogy of novels has been a long-standing nerd favorite for decades, but it became the center of culture during Vance's high school years, thanks to Peter Jackson's movies. All right, Lenore. Any arguments there? Are we
No,
gonna
no,
we're gonna stand against
sounds
that?
no, sounds about right. You know, as I said in the Fellowship episode, I saw the movies in theaters. Presumably so did JD Vance. So
Mhm.
that's, I guess, something that we share.
Well, just in his podunk town, they actually you actually had to ride a horse into there, and Meemaw had to turn the crank to so you could see Gollum stalking the Fellowship on their path down the River Anduin.
I was halfway through that. I was halfway through you saying that, and for a minute there, I thought you were like, "Oh, so Mima had to turn the crank so you could see God."
Yeah, something along those lines. You want to pick this up, Lenore?
Vance himself has pointed to Tolkien's high fantasy epics as a window into understanding his worldview. In an archived episode of the defunct Grounded podcast from 2021 that no longer shows up in podcast feeds, Representative Jim Banks of Indiana, who sat next to Vance in Trump's Friends and Family box at the convention Tuesday evening, asked Vance to name his favorite author. I would have to say Tolkien, Vance said. I'm a big Lord of the Rings guy, and I think, not realizing it at the time, but a lot of my conservative worldview was influenced by Tolkien growing up. He added of Tolkien's colleague, big fan of C.S. Lewis, really sort of like that era of English writers. I think they were really interesting. They were grappling, in part because of World War II, with just very big problems.
I'm gonna tell you right now, JD Vance could not name another English author from that era. I'm gonna tell you right now. He named Lewis and Tolkien, which like of course you know those fucking two, you nerd. But he could not name another English author of that period. I'm gonna tell you, I'm certain of it. And I know we'll get into it. I don't want to immediately get into why Lord of the Rings like shaping his worldview is absurd, but it's absurd. It doesn't make sense.
Well,
His worldview shares very little in common, unless I guess the literal monarchism. I guess
well,
I'll
and
hand you
again,
that,
like
JD.
you know, I mean, I hate to, I hate to sort of parse this like word by word, but like they were grappling with just very big problems. Is that not the most vapid thing you've ever heard?
Yeah, they're just grappling with really big
We all
problems.
got big problems.
Admittedly, they had World War II, which like yeah, big problems, but like I mean, I also, JD, if you're going to say Tolkien's your favorite author and you're going to say it's because he was grappling with World War II, no, he wasn't. Both he and Lewis were grappling with World War I. Your favorite author, and you don't even know that. I'm sorry, but Tolkien wasn't really grappling with World War II all that much. World War I was what fucked him up, and same with Lewis. Lewis during World War One or Two was just like we talked about this with on that episode with Aisha, was just on a radio show yapping for his job. Like what he was a podcaster, he was a poster, and for that we say hats off to C.S. Lewis despite his problems. The fact that he was able to get out of doing any actual work during World War II, aside from yapping about apologetics, kind of awesome. Unlike JD Vance, who is going on what is this podcast Grounded?
Grounded, yeah, I never heard of it.
Grounded Zero Socialist Shelf One. That's all I'm saying.
I mean, I don't know about you, but like, I listened to fucking Mere Christianity while I was playing Dwarf Fortress. Like, I doubt anybody who plays Dwarf Fortress like today or like in the near future and beyond is going to be listening to Grounded at the same time.
You know,
Appropriate as the title might be.
Mere Christianity is such an awesome book. We could honestly, it's it's logic, just the logic arguments Lewis makes in that one. I'm sorry not to get too off track, but he literally makes the argument that if you ask someone for an orange and they say no or yes, they're going to be appealing to moral sense rather than just answering yes or no, and that proves the existence of God. It's really cool.
I prefer Beer Christianity, which is about Jesus and the disciples brewing a lager or two.
I prefer Fear Christianity,
Hmm.
coming to a theater near you. Anyway,
Oh, that reminds
no,
me of Near Christianity. Have you read that?
near Christianity.
It's about the church right around the corner.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Lear Christianity, where it's just these inappropriate little guys who are looking through the stained glass
You have three
windows.
daughters and they all want things like all the time. Like,
Mm-hmm. Seer Christianity, it's about prophets. I mean, that's
hmm.
just in the Bible right there. In the books, the future of civilization rests on the search and eventual destruction of the One Ring. Spoiler
Accurate.
alert. Spoiler alert. While Frodo and Gollum jostle over the singular ring, true fans know there are a total of 20 rings of power.
Okay, that's like saying true fans know that like there weren't always two Sith.
I would also, there were not a total of 20 rings of power. There were actually more than 20 rings of power. Those were the great rings of power. There is a difference. So actually, Politico, I hate to do this to you. I'm gonna have to ding you again. Gonna have to ding you again. There were more rings. And if you played Lord of the Rings online, you would know that.
And
Or
if
if
you
you just
played
read the Silmarillion, you would
and
know
if you
that.
played Middle Earth Shadow of War, you would know that the Eye of Sauron is Sauron and Celebrimbor wrestling. I'm sorry. That's just
Everybody, everyone fucking knows that. Vance is apparently among those ranks, as the venture capital firm he founded in 2019 is named Narya, named after one of those other rings that Gandalf wears. Ring of Fire, by the way. Vance's mentor, Peter Thiel, similarly named his company Palantir after the crystal ball used by Saruman in Lord of the Rings. And Vance has invested in the defense startup Anduril, named after Aragorn's sword. Oh God, I'm sick to my stomach.
let's not delve too deep into the fact that it's like named after the Flame of the West. There's probably nothing odious about that.
God, that's just Vance also worked a little bit. Doesn't mention it here, I don't think, but also worked for Mithril, which is another Peter Thiel investment. Did you know Peter Thiel? They have shirts and his and it worked. The people who work for Palantir and Mithril, they have shirts that say stuff like "Save the Shire" because they're one of those startup style venture capital firms where like it's like cool. We wear jeans and t-shirts and we play arcade at the office and we sleep here. It's one of those environments, supposedly. But yeah, like he got shirts for everyone that said "Save the Shire," and then he made a company that does defense contracting and spies on people. So that's I mean, what is one even supposed to say about that? You know?
I have a friend in the VC space who like regularly tells us about like the people that she interacts with, and is like, yeah, these are some of the most hideous perverts you can ever imagine.
Of course. Yeah, okay, now this is a quote. By the time of the Lord of the Rings trilogy, Narya has been entrusted to Gandalf to resist the corrupting influence of evil, preserve the world from decay, and give strength to its wielder. End quote, said Tolkien head John Shelton, who, when not engaging in fantasy literature, is policy director for Advancing American Freedom, founded by former Vice President Mike Pence. Resuming the quote here, Gandalf, unlike the other great powers in Lord of the Rings, cared for the hobbits and other lowly people of Middle-earth, and so it is unsurprising that Vance would see himself as a kind of Gandalf, caring for the forgotten people of his hometown, keeping a watchful eye on them against the corrupting effects of the world. End quote. I'm going to punch a wall.
I I mean, he's certainly keeping a watchful eye on his neighbors, on
Yeah,
his
thank Peter Thiel for that.
yeah, I mean, but again, for what purpose, right? I mean, from what we've read in Hillbilly Elegy, it sounds like he's keeping a watchful eye on, what people consume. He's keeping a watchful eye on people in the fucking line at Publix or whatever who are on phones. Why would they have phones? They're poor. They must be, doing something odious.
Lord Sauron. I spy a man on a cellular device. Something along those lines. He's stroking his beard. Yeah.
It's an orc on fucking food stamps with the T-bone steak. Like, looks like meat's back on the menu, boys.
What's the over under that JD Vance has said to like Trump? I'm a lot like Saruman and you're like Sauron or some shit like that before. And Trump has just like given him the sort of blank Trump. Why did I pick you stare?
He's, I mean, I imagine Trump would have reacted the same way as to that Cybertruck he was gifted with like him post assassination attempt on it.
No doubt. No doubt. Honestly, giving someone a Cybertruck should count as an assassination attempt.
Oh, 100. I mean, if somebody had just like launched a Cybertruck at him rather than like shooting him and nearly missing him,
I just also want to make the point that like caring for the forgotten people of his hometown and keeping them at watchful eye against corrupting effects of the world is like the opposite of what Hillbilly Elegy. Like his point in Hillbilly Elegy is that his town is fucked, that it is corrupt, that it is like, if anything, it is like the center of darkness, right? His town is like the most awful place you can imagine. It inherently is the opposite of the Shire, right? Like it is so
Also,
far from the Shire.
Also, this guy, John Shelton, policy director for Advancing American Freedom. I looked up Advancing American Freedom on Twitter,
Demonic.
and oh yeah, no, 100%. Like the pinned post there is uh some ludicrous Mike Pence campaign ad or whatever it looks like. And it's subtitled "The Cure for What Ails America is Freedom." I mean, just your standard
I'm
boilerplate.
always saying that.
But let's scroll through the tweets here. China's predatory behavior on its quest for world domination not only puts Taiwan's independence at risk, but threatens American foreign policy. The stakes could not be higher.
The stakes could not be higher.
What are we doing here, folks? It is imperative that the United States defend Taiwan against Chinese aggression. Our economy and national security are on the line. Again, whose?
It is imperative that we protect Minas Ithil from the aggression of the people of Gondor. I mean, that is the land. That is the land of Sauron. Sauron owns Minas Ithil. He renamed it the Tower of Sorcery. That belongs to him. It does not matter that these other people built it. It doesn't matter that there's a long tradition. Don't even pay attention to the fact that the name Minas Tirith and Minas Ithil sound remarkably similar. No, don't like look into it. Sauron totally owns that place, and we should actually send our armies of Easterlings and I don't know. I'm trying to draw. Are we the
Here's an
Easterlings? Are we the is who is the United States in this scenario? If the United States is not Sauron, I'm fucking up this analogy. I hate to say it.
I mean, I guess it just depends on how you draw the map, right? I do agree with this retweet of Advancing American Freedoms. The Harris DNC policy platform is a massive gift to conservative candidates up and down the ballot. Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. Conservative candidates like Harris.
Mhm.
Do you want to read on a little bit? Because, we could riff on this forever, but
Oh, forever,
unfortunately,
yeah.
there's like 2/3 of this article left.
It's not too surprising that Lord of the Rings made a strong impression on Vance. The three films, released between 2001 and 2003 while he was in high school, grossed $2.9 billion at the box office and earned 28 Academy Award nominations and 17 wins. Luke Burgess, author of a book about Rene Girard, another of Vance's intellectual heroes, and
Ugh.
Catholic University of America professor, says he suspects Vance's appreciation of Tolkien is not unrelated to his conversion to Catholicism in 2019. This is a quote. Of the many ways that Tolkien's work exemplifies the Catholic imagination, one is the relationship between the visible and the invisible. I think it's fair to say that Vance believes there is real spiritual evil in this world, and it can become embodied in rites and rituals. At a closed door speech in September 2021, Vance said, "I believe the devil is real and that he works terrible things in our society." I mean, that I actually agree with. One of them is quoted in this article.
I have a question. What's that little bit about rites and rituals?
Real spiritual evil in this world have become embodied in rites and rituals.
What is JD Vance? What's JD Vance's opinion on rites and rituals?
What has he seen?
I mean, we know what Trump has seen probably at the fucking Epstein Island. We know they were doing rites and rituals over there. We even talked about like the mindset of like a ruling class person who gets into that brain space in our last episode, talking about tender as the flesh. But the only rites and rituals I can think about in our society are people like reaffirming their own dominance. A la the literal like human sacrifice and that shit that like takes place and like super degenerate like I don't know. I'm going off on the rails, but I'm talking about like Epstein or something. But he works for those guys.
Isn't Yale where fucking Skull and Bones is?
Yes, it
The
is.
like
Yeah,
rich people's secret society?
yes. 3 presidents have been in the Skull and Bones Society. Fun fact.
Probably nothing there.
Yeah, everything's fine.
To continue, Vance likely took away from Tolkien an apocalyptic frame of mind, Burgess told me, a final and all-encompassing battle between good and evil. A spokesperson for Vance did not respond to a request for comment for this story.
That's
God.
not correct. This is not correct. Tolkien did not believe in a final battle and good and evil was embodied in the Lord of the Rings. He very explicitly said there was going to be a final battle between good and evil on the last day, and this was not it. The idea is that evil and good are these eternally recurring things that come out of the actions of previous generations, right? The whole thing here with the ring is previous generations made their decisions that are then now passed on to future generations. The whole reason you have the situation with Sauron is because of the failure of the old armies to defeat Morgoth. The fact that Morgoth was even able to rise out of Melkor is because of failures of generations prior to that. And the fact that there is any freedom at all is also because of the battles and the struggles and the successes of previous generations. You have Gandalf's whole thing about, like, was it fruitless? No, it wasn't fruitless. It bought us time. People lived and died and lived lives. So actually, the idea of this being the final apocalyptic confrontation is so anti Tolkien. Tolkien loves the just we live and we have eras and we have moments of peace and moments of war, and what we do now affects the future boldly, even if and broadly, even if we don't live to see it. Like, he loves that shit. There's a reason Tolkien never wrote the book about his final battle between good and evil, and all he said about his final battle between good and evil is everybody's gonna be there. All the bad guys are gonna fight all the good guys. He just threw that out there. He didn't give a shit. Like, he didn't. If he did, he would have written a fucking book about it. You think Tolkien? You think if Tolkien cared, he wouldn't have written like 10,000 pages about the subject? I assure you, he would have.
Oh yeah, no, and you know, if you're like us and you're a revolutionary, you know, even the revolution that you're building, laying the groundwork for, you believe is just the next stage in historical development. You know,
Yeah,
there's
if
going to
anything,
be
it sharpens class conflict.
yeah, no, there's going to be steps forward and there's going to be steps back, and who knows what's going to come down the road. Nothing,
This
nothing, nothing ever ends, you know, as Dr. Manhattan put it.
the stage of society after communism is, I don't know, Shireism, Bagginsism.
It's
You,
whatever Dr. Manhattan has gone out in space to build.
I don't know. There's a DC comic about him meeting and fighting Superman out there.
Dr.
So
Manhattan?
yeah, DC Comics. Just so when they got the rights to it, they were
They
like,
would they would have
he
to
found
be
Superman.
they would have to have that like version of Superman that like cooked in a sun for a million years to even like rival Manhattan, wouldn't they?
You know, I don't actually recall the details of what occurs. I just remember being mad that they did it. But DC Comics also recently made a Rorschach comic where like Rorschach is cool and epic. So like they don't understand what they're doing either.
Oh, clearly, clearly.
Stay
Uh,
tuned for the Watchmen episode. Probably not anytime soon, but like certainly at some point.
it's on my mind. It's on the list.
It's on the list, but we did do more already. But
Yeah,
let's
take the next one.
see. Though he worked on it much of his life, Tolkien wrote the mythology of Middle-earth when he served in the trenches in World War One. Half a ding on that. He kind of. After the success of The Hobbit, he began work on a follow-up story in that same world and wrote much of the Rings novels while his home country Britain was fighting in World War II. The books have a definite anti-war streak. In The Two Towers, the second of the trilogy, Tolkien wrote, quote, "War must be, while we defend our lives against a destroyer who would devour all, but I do not love the bright sword for its sharpness, nor the arrow for its swiftness, nor the warrior for his glory. I love only that which they defend." End quote. I'm sure they're not about to compare it to, yep, they're about to compare it to it. Vance has said his own time in the Marines deployed in Iraq was formative to his isolationist, dovish approach to foreign policy. Quote, "I served my country honorably, and I saw when I went to Iraq that I had been lied to," end quote, Vance once recounted. Sorry, not end quote. "I saw that promises of the foreign policy establishment of this country were a complete joke." It's good to know Vance is dovish. This is the first I'm hearing of this.
Yeah, yeah, because if you read Hillbilly Elegy, you know, all he has to say about Iraq is, yeah, I wanted to go over there and kill terrorists.
Yeah, and that the people loved him over there.
Oh
They
yeah.
were big fans. They loved when he handed them erasers.
Oh yeah, all the children of Iraq just lined up to give JD Vance high fives.
JD Vance was against the Iraq War 10 years after the Iraq War ended. That, like, hot take, JD.
Oh,
Good
that's
job.
super cool.
Yeah, or not after it ended. Obviously it's ongoing, but like after he like got back. Like that doesn't count. You don't get to just become against the Iraq War in 2018 and say you were against it the entire time.
I've seen articles recently from like self-described hardcore Zionists who are now saying, "Oh, isn't it so sad that Israel has lost its moral authority?" And I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, that's what's sad here, not the fucking genocide that it's carrying out, not that, not the stuff that we've been saying for 10 months and prior, but that, oh, this country that you liked is doing bad things."
And comparing Vance to Tolkien, like the stance, his quote unquote dovishness, to Tolkien saying, like, I love only that which they defend. First of all, I would say it's a stretch that Vance loves anything the sword supposedly defends, even if you buy the entire myth of American imperialism, the necessity of it. We read an entire book of him just shitting on America, like the actual lived experience of being an American and the experience of being working class and the experience of trying to exist in a country that's like left you behind, right? He actually hates the day-to-day existence. He loves the concept, right? He loves the playing the music, I'm proud to be an American. But when you get into this, like this speech from Faramir where he's like, I love that which it defends, right? Like, I love the people, I love the healing, I love the homes, I love the gardens. JD doesn't love any of those things. He doesn't love any of those things. He loves the broad concept of America, which is why every time he talks about it, all he can do is talk about just like grandiose figures, and he can quote songs, and he can say the military is awesome, and he can talk about like the possibilities of capitalism and Yale and such bullshit. And like that, frankly, is just not the same thing Tolkien's going for. And this is not me again, and we'll get into it more. This is not me saying Tolkien is like the greatest anti-imperialist of all time. I'm just saying this is a quantifiably different thing here. And it's also incredibly dangerous that like we're allowing as a society, JD Vance is saying, oh, I was against the past war, to make him like seem like some kind of anti-interventionist. Like, yeah, because he disagrees with Ukraine policy, just because Biden did it, he would agree with it totally when and if Trump did it. And he wants to go to war with other countries. Yeah, he's an anti-interventionist. I fucking hate this guy, and I hate Politico, and I'm mad right now. I'm mad about this. I'm serious.
Well, speaking of Ukraine,
Oh, it's
this
gonna be
next
good.
this
Yeah.
next paragraph here. But his fandom also is in tension with some of Tolkien's ideas about how nation states should approach the outside world.
Oh
The books
man.
are, in many ways, anti-isolationist. Frodo wants to ignore the ill tidings and stay home, but eventually realizes that the Shire isn't untouched by troubles elsewhere, like, say, NATO being pulled into defending Ukraine from Sauron Putin.
Killing
Okay,
myself.
like, I know, like, it's a big meme, telling Harry Potter liberals read another book, but I think at this point we should just like, wish illiteracy on them entirely.
You're not allowed to read. These people are not allowed to read anymore. You're not
If
allowed to
this
watch TV, nothing.
if this is what you do with it, then yeah. Uh,
You're what media are we going to allow them to consume? They should only be allowed to consume like,
the socialist shelf.
I think that would be good. They no, because then they'll make socialist shelf like comparisons. They'll be like they'll be like NATO pulled in defending Ukraine from Sauron Lenore or some shit. And then what will we do? Lenore Putin or something. We can't have this. Or what if there's like a hated guest and then they get compared to Voldemort all the time? We can't have that.
Well, I mean, if Minas Morgul was pulled into like Gondor's defense pact or whatever, and then said, "Oh yeah, like we're totally gonna stand up to Mordor, and like we got this big neighbor of ours that's totally got our back." Like, I don't even know what this guy's going for here. There's so much more prelude and context to the current war in Ukraine than just 2022. I'm sorry.
Well, I think the only media they should be allowed to consume, now that I've had time to think about it, is the Grounded podcast. And if it can't come up, guys, just keep refreshing it. I promise. The Grounded podcast, it'll pop up.
You
Just,
know,
just
if
keep
you
refreshing.
if you listen to it backward, I hear that you get Mike Pence's shopping list.
You do. And he is only shop. What is Mike Pence shopping for?
Uh,
Tell us in the comments.
yeah, I don't, probably something very, very boring.
Tell us in the comments what Mike Pence is shopping for. You can leave comments on Spotify now.
Uh,
So if you're listening on Spotify,
oh, this gets so much weirder. In the
go
end,
for it.
Rohan, Gondor, the elves, Ents, and dwarves all must band together and end their petty nationalist squabbles. Their lives are, they realize, interconnected. Vance's love of Lord of the Rings is of a piece with rightward nationalists abroad. Italy's Giorgia Meloni used to cosplay as a hobbit. I want pictures. I want to fucking see this. I think that Tolkien could say better than us what conservatives believe in, she has said, though unlike Vance, she has supported aid to Ukraine.
Yeah, because she was in power when it happened, just like Vance would have supported aid to Ukraine if he had been in power when it happened.
Jessica Hooton Wilson, the Fletcher Jones Chair of Great Books at Pepperdine University, has taught Tolkien in her courses and spent time with Vance in 2019 at a conference focused on the Catholic writer Walker Percy. She told me Vance may have internalized the message that America, unlike Frodo, is not called to intervene abroad. I think this is where Tolkien did not want his work called allegory, because he didn't want one way of reading his text, she said. She added, I would also hope that whoever is reading Lord of the Rings and Walker Percy is willing to learn from it, rather than to make it say what they want it to say. I mean, wonderful. I wish she had talked to, the fuck was his name? I wish she had talked to Adam Wren about it.
Definitely. Uh, she told me that Vance may have internalized the message that America, unlike Frodo, is not called to intervene abroad. Just let's sit with that for a second. Was
Was Frodo intervening abroad when he bought a house on the edge of the Shire and relocated to it to dodge the fucking Nazguls intervening in his land?
Yeah, I was gonna say, if anything, Frodo got intervened with first. I think that's the message here. Frodo got attacked first, and not just like, a little measly nothing. They came for him, they dealt with they said the word yonder to Farmer Maggot, and you do not do that
Hmm.
without serious, serious retribution. Um, how about this? Rick Santorum, the former senator and two-time GOP presidential candidate, is a fellow
Boo.
Tolkien-pilled Catholic. Let me read that again. In the pages of Politico, Tolkien-pilled Catholic. That's so cool that that's reached like parlance just in the pages of our literature. But he has different takeaways from Vance. He recounted to me this week how he read Tolkien to his children. Quote, I always dreamed I would get interviewed about Lord of the Rings, end quote, Santorum told me. He continued, I'm a huge Tolkien fan. I'm also someone who believes that the message of Tolkien is that evil must be confronted. And so the idea is that, well, we can wait until it comes to the Shire, but that is not a very good plan. You gotta go to Mordor.
Well,
End
one does
quote.
not simply walk in there.
They kind of do though. I mean, they don't do it simply, but they do walk in. It's one of those things that like Boromir kind of got owned on that because like they did sort of just walk into Mordor. I mean, there's some climbing there too, but how do
This
we feel about
is,
Rick Santorum being Tolkien pilled?
I mean, the less I know about this guy's personal life, the better, you know? Like,
Hmm.
the last I've heard of this guy was his name being appropriated for like a frothy mix of shit and semen.
There you go. I will say, now that I'm thinking about it, this is sparking a memory of like a 2012 College Humor bit where they did a Game of Thrones of the American presidential election. And Santorum was like the red lady who was setting people on fire. And
Nah,
and they were
he's
like we have to win his allegiance, but no one really wants to talk to him.
I mean the problem with that is that like what the fuck was her name? Like I don't recall what her name was, but the problem with that is like she's too cool to be any of them.
Melisandre, right?
Melisandre, yeah.
Melisandre. Yeah, Santorum is sort of a creepy version of her. Um, and then Obama is on the Iron Throne. I don't remember all the specifics. I just remember that part, and I remember there's a joke in it where Michelle is like trying to bring up school lunches during like court, and it's like kind of funny. I don't know. Maybe it's not funny at all. I don't know. Don't go back and watch it. Maybe it's not funny, and I'm a fool.
There was
You
an
know,
article by Dan O'Brien on Cracked where like he self-inserted into the Game of Thrones universe and was just kind of a like hapless jackass walking around bearing witness to things like Forrest Gump. And like he was watching a speech by Joffrey at one point, and everybody's like wrapped with attention, and he's like, "Guys, we gotta kill his kid. You see that, right?"
we got to get rid of him.
All this
And
points to
yeah,
intellectual and spiritual tensions Vance still seems to be working out. He's been in office a year and a half. He's never been greatly involved in politics before this, Santorum said. I suspect that this is one of the reasons Trump may have picked him. JD is a smart guy, but is still a work in progress.
Citation needed on the smart guy bit. I'm sorry.
I mean, work in progress is doing some heavy lifting here. Those close to Vance say he has been undergoing an awakening since he converted to Catholicism in 2019. Jacob, is JD Vance woke?
You know, he has been awakened. He is I'm trying to work woke into JD, but I can think of joke doke Vance. I don't have that's not anything. Um,
Jokes.
but I am really excited about the next paragraph. I'm really excited about the next
Please
paragraph
regale us.
because it is one of my favorite guys, has showed up again, as he always will, and anything about JD Vance. Conservative writer Rod Dreher, let's fucking go,
Mm.
who Vance invited to his initiation to the faith in 2019 and was present for his first communion, told me that Vance, quote, is thinking broadly about how all must join in the great struggle against darkness. There was no avoiding the struggle, and how God can use the humble and the lowborn to do great things. Think about it. Who would have imagined that sad, scared little Ohio boy living in a wreck of a family would have come through it all and risen to the gates of supreme political power? What might God be doing with him? J.D. Vance might be Frodo of the Hollers, a veritable hillbilly hobbit.
Frodo of the Hollers. Oh my God.
Frodo of the Hollers. Yeah. Ryan in the chat saying killing myself. Thank you, Ryan. That is true. I just want to note again, if you don't know Rod Dreher, I don't want to say go read him in the sense of he's like serious, but like this is a man who is let's say there's something deep, like imagine someone who's in the closet, but then they like take a shovel and are like digging deeper and deeper and deeper, like the song like Turn It Off like a light switch from fucking
Book of
Book of
Mormon.
Mormon. Yeah, no, it's that's this is a guy who posted a picture of him, his wife, and JD Vance together, and then edited an oyster over his wife, so it was just him and JD Vance, and there's a giant oyster in the picture. This is the man who said it should be illegal to divorce your wife, and then divorced his wife while on a trip across Europe, and had a stay like in Orban's Hungary for some reason before he got like in trouble for unclear reasons. This is a guy who I believe he converted eventually to like Russian Orthodoxy because Catholicism wasn't hard enough for him.
I mean, Church Slavonic is a great language to sing in.
Mhm.
I listen to the Sretensky Monastery Choir now and again, but I mean, like he's joining for like weirder reasons than the music.
This is a guy who said that at his boarding school, he was desperately jealous of the two gay guys because he couldn't have sex with men, and somehow doesn't associate that with him being gay. He's fascinating. Look into Rod
It's
Dreher. The podcast Chapo Trap House has been following this guy for years. They've gotten banned from, or they've gotten blocked from following him on Twitter over and over and over again. He even figured out how to block them from like accessing his Substack, and they've like continued to follow him because he's just such a fascinating guy. This is a guy who wrote who said that something along the lines of sissy hypno is incredibly dangerous, and he's had to listen to it for like
that's the
1 minute at a
guy.
yeah, he has to listen to it for like 1 minute at a time because it's incredibly powerful. It has dark forces, and it'll work on you if you watch more.
That's very revealing
It's so fucking
about our
cool.
friend Rob
So,
Dreher.
so yeah, this is one of the main intellectuals who has influenced JD fans.
I mean,
We live in such a weird world, yeah.
we do. And to sort of bring this to a thesis, I think,
I don't have one.
Hitler's favorite dessert was whipped cream. Benito Mussolini's favorite dessert was a strawberry sherbet frappe, And this by reading the New York Times and other newspapers of record from history that ran puff pieces on these men, before it all kicked off. And when you look at JD Vance's worldview, the stuff that he's written in his memoir about how, poor people are lazy and, they draw baths and just like destroy their houses and, therefore they should be hung out to dry. Like, the guy who follows and considers, weird right-wing monarchists like the intellectual titans of our time, who is against no-fault divorce and this, that, or the other. Like, when you're a journalist and your job is to present information to the public, you have to ask yourself, okay, like, am I really like communicating what needs to be communicated here? Am I missing the points when I'm talking about how this deeply depraved individual who wants an incredibly regressive agenda for this country? Am I missing the point when I'm talking about how cool his literary tastes are?
I also want to put a take on the table. Very little in the way of actual quotes from JD Vance in this article. Very, very, very thin on that. I have questions about what JD Vance would actually say about Lord of the Rings, and so I am putting out a challenge to JD Vance right now. JD, come on the pod to talk about Two Towers with us. I'm so serious. We'll have you on the pod. We'll hear you out. I think everyone, what we know about JD Vance is every time he says something on a podcast, he gets more popular. We know this because he went. I mean, I don't know what happened with Grounded. He went on it once and the entire podcast blew up apparently. But I think we can take it. And I really want to hear him explain why Saruman was actually the good guy, how the hobbits were anti-interventionist, except in the case of China, which I assume is Mordor, but also everything else. I really want to understand how he connects these different subspecies of hobbits and how those different subspecies were actually more prone to crime, how the Brandy Bucks and the Proudfoots were actually forming ethnic enclaves. I want to hear about that. I want to hear about his opinion on why a woman was able to kill the Witch King and whether that actually violates her biological imperative, and whether Lord Eru Iluvatar was actually mad about that. Um,
Well,
I have questions.
if any woman could kill the Witch King, whoever walked this earth, it's Mamaw.
It is Mammal. I will say this. Did you see the interview that just came out with JD Vance where he's talking about Mammal and her biological imperatives? He managed to turn my Mammal taking care of me as a child was sweet into, well, that is the life purpose of postmenopausal women. Which, like, imagine having such bad political instincts, you can take something like it's nice when grandparents take care of their children and turn it into such like a weird freak thing like that.
I mean, for somebody who's very, very used to making normative statements about large swaths of people based on weird, like essentialist dogmas, it's not out of character.
He's woted. We've heard of the GOAT. He is the woat. He is genuinely one of the worst VP picks I've ever seen. I sincerely think that, like, it blows my mind that Trump picked him as VP. Again, saying this now, in August of 2024. If you're listening to this in the year and the JD dynasty is ruling and we're in prison for insulting just deity Vance,
Hmm.
then you unfortunately, I hate to tell you this, but the hillbilly hobbits are on the way to arrest you and throw you underneath Barad-dûr. But until then, I will rail against this absolute political numbskull, this absolute moron, this absolute fool of a took uh for for being anywhere near the levers of power, and the fact that this is even a conversation, that he was even able to be elected senator. I really am just every day I hate this man more. I really do. So thank you, Politico, because I didn't think I could get any more angry at JD Vance, but here we are.
I just hope that the okay, illustration by Michelle Roan for Politico. Okay, so I just hope that it wasn't AI generated, because if it's Michelle like doing her own thing, I mean, good for her. I just wish she'd put her talents toward, less odious stuff. Like you and me in this picture.
Yes. I think that we should be edited into the picture. I think that I should get a pipe. Lenore should get Narya the Ring of Fire. I think
Well,
that would
no,
be
I
cool.
I I want to be the Eye of Sauron because I
Hmm,
think Sauron and Celebrimbor wrestling represents, the dual natures within myself
I see.
of, EP and Night Owl.
Lenore, can you explain why they're oiled up and naked wrestling in this version?
This will be the Socialist Shelf After Dark.
Is this guys, I hate to say it. There is no character I can fix in the story. It's certainly not Rick Santoro.
You can't
It's
fix JD Vance.
I can't fix. Rod Dreher, I could probably fix, but I do not want to.
I mean, JD Vance is a work in progress. Don't write off your influence quite yet.
It would be so cool if after being around Trump for like a few months, he starts talking like Trump. Like, what if he like adopts all his mannerisms? He already did it with his politics. Like, you know
Ah,
how like Pete Buttigieg tries to do like Obama?
yeah,
Like,
yep.
what if he started doing Trump? I really think that would be really funny.
Folks, you should see the mountains where I come from. The tremendous mountains, some valleys in there as well. Some of the people not so great. They leave the bathtub on. What are they doing here, folks?
Something about Magic the Gathering. He's trying to teach Trump how to play Magic the Gathering. Trump's getting
Trump would
furious.
100% be an Orzhov player. Let's be honest.
I'm gonna have to take your word for it on that. I really will.
So the Orzhov Syndicate is basically this like undead like bank slash church thing,
Okay.
and like basically like if you die with like debts, then they can like enslave your spirit to them. Like it's very Trump coded.
Do you think JD Vance has or would play Dungeons and Dragons?
He's probably done it at one point. Um,
Or would that be one of the rituals that can summon evil into the world? Because that's something I was told as a child. See Worst of All Possible Worlds episode on castles and cauldrons if you're curious about what I was taught growing up about Dungeons and Dragons. But yeah, it was seen as a ritual. But I will say, I could see JD like making the most annoying character who's like, he doesn't want to role play. He just wants to fight. And then he's like, what loot do I get? What loot do I get? Oh, this +3 sword that comes from my last campaign. I already have it. I didn't tell you about it. Oh, yeah, I can, it can sell, it does an extra 2, 3, 4 D20s of damage. Yeah. And then he's like, oh, well, I kill everybody. I attack everybody. Yeah. That's JD Vance's character. I'm already telling you that.
his character just like dungeon crawls until he pisses like brown.
Ryan, not to put you on the spot, but you heard that article in its totality. Do you have any thoughts?
Yes, it's that if there was a Patreon to the JD Vance podcast, I would become a top tier subscriber to listen to him try to explain the concept of Magic the Gathering to Donald Trump.
Well, there's that President's Play Magic the Gathering like AI series. I'm surprised Kamala Harris has been in it, but JD Vance has not.
I feel like that, like, or do they still make those? Because that felt like that was like that peaked like 6 months ago.
The guy's kind of slowed down, but
Mm.
like there are moments of like of I think there are genuine moments of craft in there. I think Kamala Harris being like a Fortnite player who only speaks in Zoomer slang is pretty inspired.
That makes sense. That makes sense. That's
Hill
good. That's
Dog,
beautiful.
like Hill Dog, I blew a vape in my Xbox 360 and now it won't turn on. Shit like that.
This is my fight song. Just fading in. There we go.
I'm just gonna gnaw my own fingers off one by one.
Everybody, this has been a real thrown together episode. I'm gonna be real honest with you. My back is an
It's
insane
thrown
pain.
together in that we're on the throne together, making the best of it.
With Anduril, the flame of the West. The flame of the best, because many are saying this is the best episode ever. Um, I don't have any final thoughts on this because I'm really mad, and this made me more mad than I expected to be, and that may have made me more incoherent than I would have liked to be. But every now and then it is important to get angry. This also makes me respect the podcast greats out there who do this basically every week. They read an article that makes them angry that they haven't even looked at, and then they just like are able to riff about it like intelligently. Like
Yeah,
Trillbillies
shout out.
Workers Party.
I was literally about to
Yeah.
shout out the Trillbillies for going through like a Dark Night of the Soul every other week and somehow like somehow sticking with it.
I've seen, it always seems like something you could just kind of do, but like now that I've tried it, this is maddening, and I just want to give respect to the greats. I know there are others who do it, but Trillbillies, just gotta say, do you need anything? Because it feels like if you have to do this every week, twice a week actually for your patrons, might drive you up a wall. Much like no, I don't have anything there. I don't have anything there. Well, folks, this has been a short, sweet question mark episode of the Socialist Shelf.
I was
Um,
thinking more umami.
a mommy episode of the Socialist Shelf about our favorite guy, yours and ours, JD Vance. I have this vision in my head that I think is almost for sure going to come to pass. That JD Vance is one day going to write a fantasy novel if he's not, doesn't get his like just reward.
Just
And
desserts, Vance.
exactly right. If he doesn't get his just desserts, and we're gonna have to read that fantasy novel like on debut. I hate to say.
You know what other politician is a novelist? Stacey Abrams.
That's true. Though I think we're in a little more danger of arousing ire over our reviews of that one, but it's definitely gonna happen. Let's be
I'm just
honest.
saying, Hidden Sins is on the list.
Hidden Sins, is that really what it's called?
That's what she's written a few, and Hidden Sins is one of them.
I'm not sure. Like I could see it would be really funny if she was like really good. I think that would be funny. But I guess we'll see because we're like, we've taken some shots. We've taken some easy shots. Like even Bill Clinton, Democrat, but like nobody's gonna get mad if you go after Bill Clinton. But then again, we have no Twitter followers anymore. So like who's gonna get mad at us? Well, you're gonna get mad in the comments on Spotify. I approve or deny those before they go up on the page, dumbass. Nothing that attacks us will prosper. Only compliments. Shout out to our only comment ever from Moss, who said, "Great episode. Thank you, Moss." Shout out.
Yes, yes. We will shout you out any day of the week.
Do y'all have any other thoughts before we close this one out and I go take some Advil? Y'all, I am in pain. I'm not gonna lie.
I actually have a thought.
Sir.
Yeah, give it.
It is that if you want to hold any degree of power under no matter what system we currently exist in, you should have to write a novel so that we can know what's going on up there.
Yes, 100%. And it like I think that's actually a great idea. And I really do want to read a Trump novel now. Like more than maybe anything.
Well, that locks me out of the halls of power.
That here's the thing. They're not no editor, nothing. They just are like gun to your head. They just make you keep writing.
No,
about it.
exactly. And like that would legitimately bar people like Donald Trump from being in power. I don't think he could do it. But also, you
Mhm.
would get to see what the truly inner thoughts of JD Vance types are without, I think, them even being able to realize what they're putting out into the world.
I'm gonna tell you right now, JD Vance is one of those people who goes on Reddit and it's like English teachers don't understand world building is just as valid as character, and all his whole thing is just world building. It's just a fucking Wikipedia entry. I'm gonna tell you that right now because I read his book. I read his fucking book, and I know that's what he would do in a fantasy novel.
Yeah, he would be a Warhammer 40K fan.
He was there and he couldn't write about the characters in his own life. Oh no. I hope he doesn't become the fascist dictator because they're just going to be playing this back to me in my court.
They're gonna be using this as proof that this is gonna be your what the fuck was that book Oscar Wilde wrote? Like
Portrait of Dorian Gray. Picture of Dorian Gray.
it wasn't that, it was the other one that was like incredibly gay. The other incredibly gay one that he
I
wrote.
got you. You see Picture of Dorian Gray, they're making a Netflix show and they're making them related in the show.
It's
The
so
guys.
fucking stupid. Oh my god.
We've got problems. They didn't listen to the episode, and that's
mean,
also a problem.
Well, when they were fucking dubbing Sailor Moon, and they made fucking Uranus and Neptune, fucking like cousins. Like, what are we doing here, folks? Like,
State mandated socialist shelf listening. That's what I'm thinking.
yes, no, that I support.
Every good take we have and every bad take then becomes the standard. Well, I'm gonna go reflect on what a Donald Trump novel would be like. I'm gonna say it's a romance. But I'm not for sure.
I'm throwing
He
this
does-
out here. I'm throwing this out here. The week he dies, we're gonna do Art of the Deal.
He didn't write that is the only problem. If I thought he did, if I thought he had like even 1% input on that book, I think I'd be more interested in it. But like, I don't think he even I don't think he's read Art of the Deal. I'm going on the record and saying that. Have you ever heard
Well,
him talk about it? He doesn't know what's in the book. I'm just gonna tell you.
well, that's that. I'm very excited to take that deep dive. You know, if and when I say if and when he dies, as if he's going to be immortal. He's not going to be immortal.
Warhammer 40K, right? He and Joe will run against each other in 2028 once they're all spruced up and ready to go.
Yeah, he's
Thousands of
gonna get
psychers being sacrificed each day to maintain them.
yeah, he's gonna get locked into a dreadnought.
Well, folks, this has been Socialist Shelf article read, and it was so dreadful that there might not be another one ever again. Thanks, guys.
Peace out, y'all.
Thank you for listening to Socialist Shelf Radio.